Take a slow breath before you continue. Not because something is about to rush you, but because nothing needs to be rushed anymore. If these words found you, it's not because you were searching, it's because something within you was ready to hear them. There are seasons in life when everything looks normal on the surface, yet something deep inside you knows change is happening. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. You may not be able to explain it to anyone. You may not even fully understand it yourself yet, but you feel it, a quiet awareness, a sense that the old way of living, reacting, and thinking no longer fits you. And that's not confusion, that's growth. You've reached a point where your spirit is no longer comfortable pretending to be fine, pretending to agree, pretending to stay small so others feel comfortable. This isn't rebellion, it's honesty. For a long time, you survived by adapting, by adjusting your expectations, by learning when to stay quiet and when to keep the peace. That survival taught you strength. But now, you're being invited into something different, alignment. Alignment doesn't demand struggle. It doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't require you to abandon yourself to belong. Alignment feels calm, even when it leads you into the unknown. You may notice that things you once chased no longer excite you. Conversations you once tolerated now feel draining. Goals you once thought defined you now feel incomplete. That doesn't mean you failed. It means your values evolved. You're no longer motivated by urgency. You're motivated by meaning. And meaning asks different questions. Not how fast can I get there, but is this worth carrying with me long term? This shift can feel uncomfortable at first. When you stop forcing outcomes, silence gets louder. When you stop chasing approval, space opens up. When you stop explaining yourself, misunderstandings may appear. But clarity always follows courage. You're learning that not everything needs a response. Not every invitation deserves your energy. Not every opportunity aligns with your direction. Discernment isn't avoidance, it's respect for your time, your peace, and your future self. And as you practice this, something changes. You become less reactive, less anxious about timing, less dependent on reassurance. You begin to trust your internal compass again. That compass was never broken. It was just buried under expectations, fear, and noise. Now it's resurfacing. You may feel drawn towards simplicity, towards fewer commitments but deeper ones, towards quality instead of quantity. That's not isolation, that's refinement. Refinement doesn't remove people randomly. It clarifies who truly belongs. Some connections will fade naturally, not because of conflict, but because growth creates distance. Let them go without resentment. Gratitude makes space for what's next, and what's next doesn't require you to betray yourself to access it. You are stepping into a phase where your presence speaks louder than your effort, where your consistency matters more than your intensity, where your boundaries become invitations to respect, not walls. This season is teaching you stability, not the kind that comes from control, but the kind that comes from trust. Trust that you don't need to rush healing. Trust that clarity doesn't come from overthinking. Trust that what's meant for you won't require constant anxiety to maintain. You're not falling behind, you're integrating lessons you once rushed past, integrating parts of yourself you once ignored, integrating wisdom that only experience could teach. This isn't a pause in your journey, it's a recalibration, and recalibration always feels quieter than chaos, but it's far more powerful. Soon, decisions will feel easier, not because choices disappear, but because alignment reduces confusion. You'll know what to say yes to, you'll recognize what to decline without guilt, you'll move forward without constantly looking back, and when challenges appear, because they always do, you'll meet them with steadiness instead of panic. That's progress, not dramatic, not performative, but real. So stay present, let this season do its work. Let patience replace pressure. Let clarity replace noise. You don't need to become someone else. You're simply becoming more yourself. And that version of you is finally ready to live without pretending.
As you remain with this awareness, something important becomes clear. You are no longer reacting from old survival patterns. You are responding from understanding. For a long time, life felt like something you had to defend yourself against. Every delay felt personal. Every silence felt like rejection. Every closed door felt like proof that you were doing something wrong. But now, you're beginning to recognize a different truth. Not everything that didn't move was blocked. Some things were simply waiting for you to arrive internally. Arrival doesn't always look like achievement. Sometimes it looks like calm. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like finally trusting yourself enough to stop forcing outcomes. You're learning that peace is not something you earn after everything is fixed. Peace is something you choose, even while things are still unfolding. And that choice changes how life meets you. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision. You no longer feel guilty for saying no. You no longer feel pressured to stay where you've outgrown the space. This isn't selfishness. This is self-respect. Self-respect shows up quietly. It doesn't denounce itself. It doesn't argue. It simply adjusts. You begin to walk away from what drains you without needing conflict. You begin to move toward what feels stable without needing permission. And slowly, your nervous system learns something new. That safety doesn't always come from certainty. It comes from trust. Trust in your timing. Trust in your discernment. Trust that what's meant to stay will stay without you having to grip it tightly. You are no longer chasing clarity. Clarity is meeting you where you stand. That's why decisions feel lighter now. That's why your inner voice feels steadier. That's why the noise around you doesn't pull you the same way it once did. You are integrating lessons that once came through pain. Integration is quiet. It doesn't demand applause. It simply changes behavior. You stop repeating cycles without needing to analyze them endlessly. You stop tolerating patterns that once felt normal but were never healthy. You stop negotiating with parts of your life that were never aligned. This is what growth actually looks like. Not dramatic transformation, not overnight reinvention, but a steady return to yourself. You are becoming more selective with your energy because you finally understand its value. Where you place your attention, your life follows. And lately, you've been placing it more intentionally. You're choosing rest over urgency, presence over distraction, depth over noise. This doesn't shrink your life, it strengthens it. You may notice fewer things competing for your attention now, fewer people pulling at you, fewer situations demanding explanations. That space isn't emptiness, it's alignment. Alignment feels unfamiliar at first because chaos once felt normal. But once you adjust, you realize how much unnecessary weight you were carrying. And you don't need to carry it anymore. The version of you that survived did its job. You can honor that version without staying there. You're allowed to evolve beyond who you had to be. As this season continues, you'll notice that life doesn't feel as heavy. Not because challenges disappear, but because you're no longer carrying them alone inside yourself. You've learned when to pause, when to step back, when to move forward without rushing. That rhythm will guide you. And there's something important to remember as you move ahead. You don't need to prove your growth to anyone. You don't need to justify your peace. You don't need permission to live in a way that feels stable and honest. What's meant for you will recognize you without struggle, and what isn't will fade without force. That's not loss. That's refinement. So let this be the closing understanding. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing anything meant for you. You are arriving, calmly, steadily, in your own time. And from here forward, you don't have to abandon yourself to move ahead. You get to walk forward with yourself intact. That's not the end of your story. That's where it finally begins to make sense.